Two watches, one epic mountain race, and a brand most runners have never heard of. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the EZON R7 Focus, a budget-friendly GPS sports watch that joined me at the Lavaredo 50K. Yes, its first test was a mountain ultra. Let's get into it. First of all, who is EZON? EZON is a Chinese company that, according to their rep, their aim is to produce affordable sports watches. If you've never heard of them, same here. Until their rep reached out through YouTube to review one of their watches. Honestly, at first I thought it was a scam, but they made it very clear. I could say whatever I wanted to, and here we are. Yes, I received this watch for free. No, that doesn't influence what I say. You're getting my 100% honest take as always. So, what's in the box? You get the watch, a charger, and the usual paperwork. Simple packaging. The R7 Focus costs $139. It weighs 29 grams. It comes in 4 colors. Mine, I chose the fabric grey, mostly for the soft strap. Spec-wise, it punches well above its price. Dual band GPS, optical heart rate, VO2 max, training load, sleep tracking, running form metrics, a triathlon mode, Gorilla Glass, waterproof, and even a trek mode where you can pick up your lane. Honestly, this sounds pretty wide for this price range, but does it deliver? The watch landed exactly one day before I flew out to Italy to participate in the Lavaredo 50K. Definitely, I had no time to break it in, no time to try it, just did the unboxing video to have some B content, strapped it on, and the day after the watch was in Cortina. The first tracked activity was the Lavaredo 50K, definitely a baptism of fire, especially for its battery life. The watch body feels pretty solid. A metal bezel and the metal back make it feel more premium than I expected. To be honest, it feels more premium than the Coros Space Pro. The screen is an MIP, great in sunlight, slightly dull indoors, typical for a MIP screen. It has a barometer, altimeter, and a standard 22mm quick release strap, so the straps can actually be interchanged with other watches such as the EZON R7. The dial or the crown feels slippery and tough to rotate unless you grip it with 2 fingers. Charging is done via a clasp like all the Garmin devices. The heart rate sensor has 2 green lights and 4 glass ports. According to EZON, these are the 4 channels for active and resting heart rate. To be honest, they do not light up or do anything unless their main role is to pick up the light from the LEDs. You have a red LED as well for the SpO2. However, SpO2 is only measured on demand, so no overnight tracking. That said, it supports external heart rate straps, and unlike my EZON R7, it actually shows the strap's name once paired, which is honestly a nice touch. The watch interface is very simple. You get a limited set of widgets: heart rate, sleep, pressure, weather, race predictors, training load, but you can't interact with most of them or customize anything. They're there just to take a glance at. EZON claims 28 sport modes, but that includes subcategories. Realistically speaking, you get 10 main ones: run, trail run, pool swim, open water, cycling, triathlon, hiking, indoor run, climbing and rowing. Each sport mode is fixed. Data screens are predefined. HR zones too, and no, you can change any of them. The only ones that do not determine the HR are the free profiles, The rest you will have a specific range to stick to. For example, if you choose outdoor fat burning as a sport profile, it will expect you to maintain specific heart rate zone. You also can build custom workouts, no custom interval, no custom training plans. It's either follow their plan or actually you have to go manual. You cannot import plans, or maybe if you have a training coach, you cannot synchronize the plan from other platforms. So either manual or their own training plans. However, one can find a track mode where you can select your lane from 1 to 9, which is a cool addition. It only works on a 400-meter track, though I didn't test it since I don't run on running tracks. Also worth noting, the watch has a triathlon mode where you choose the order of the activity and then you press the lap button to go from swimming to transition, to cycling to transition, to running. One very important thing to note is that the lap button is a press of a crown and not the back button at the bottom, which honestly feels a little bit unusual way to do it. Most of the other watches, the lap button is at the bottom and the stop start button would be the crown. However, they did it opposite way. This applies to ending an activity as well. Instead of pressing the crown to stop the activity, you need to press the bottom button. In fact, after the Lavaredo race, since it was my first time using the watch, I just pressed the crown and I thought that the workout stopped, but instead I created a lap and the watch continued recording the activity for an additional 30 minutes until I had the opportunity to glance at the watch and see what happened or not. Starting an activity is easy. Press the knob, pick a sport, wait for GPS and HR to lock, and you are good to go. GPS lock takes about a minute in most scenarios. The data screens, as I said before, they are fixed but quite comprehensive. For running you get pace, HR, cadence, power, ascent, descent, altitude, lap data, stamina, etc. You just can choose what you want to see, and every profile has its set of data fields. You cannot rearrange them, you cannot do anything about it. Now, let's talk about accuracy, because at the end of the day, it's one area which matters the most. Unfortunately, when you export the GPX file from EZON, does not actually export the heart rate. So in most runs and swims and cycling, except for Lavaredo, I'm actually gonna say what was the average heart rate of both devices and the max heart rate of both devices and how close or far they were from each other. Please keep in mind that the Sunto for the cycling and running, it was connected to the Coros armband, while for swimming to the Sunto smart band, so accuracy should be better on the Sunto compared to the EZON because it's using the optical HR. So let's start from Lavaredo. In the case of Lavaredo, I am not gonna actually talk about the heart rate and distance because unfortunately I forgot, or I did not know actually how to pause the device. Initially the start, the EZON, which is the light blue, and the pink is the Sunto. Don't take note of the last part of the EZON because it was all bunkers. So if you might see in the start, it was off by on an invisible street, but then after that it was very close to the Sunto. I was wearing the EZON on my right hand while the Sunto was on my left hand, so you might find some differences in cornering, etc. But if you take a closer look, in most scenarios they are very close to each other. Even here under heavy tree coverage they did very well, and of course the higher we went, on paper it should have been easier, and if you see they are almost identical in most scenarios. So honestly, the EZON in this case I think did as good as the Sunto. Yes, of course there might be some slight differences, and to be honest I don't know which one would be the most accurate, especially in the trails, but overall it did very good. Here we go, almost back to the streets of Cortina. We're getting close by, and if you see, they are almost on top of each other with very few differences that you can say they are actually major. So we're seeing very close tracks on each other. Honestly, I was pretty surprised with the EZON and with its accuracy. And we can go back down to 49. So you're seeing the whole, actually 50 kilometers, they did very well. And they were very close to each other. Sometimes the EZON might have a smoother trail, smoother track, but again, overall, I believe they did very well. Now I'm gonna go back and check the second run, which was a road run. It was a progression run. First 3 kilometers, it was easy. Second 3 kilometers, it was steady pace. And the last 3 kilometers, it was all out. And even if you take a snapshot, you will realize that the GPS, they are almost identical, both of them. So if we look at some of the roads, they are almost the same. Very few minor differences, which I think they are not gonna make so much difference. Sometimes the Sunto cuts corners, sometimes the R7 cuts corners as well. And when it comes to heart rate, in this case, the average heart rate recorded by the R7 was 150, while the Sunto's average heart rate for the session was 151. The max heart rate from the R7 was 173, while the max heart rate from the Sunto using the chorus band was 174. So even the optical heart rate did pretty well in or on this run. The last run was actually a trail run, and this time I wore both watches on my left hand side. And again, if we take a closer look, they are almost identical to each other. Very minor differences which are not gonna make a difference when it comes to accuracy. Distance was maybe slightly less on the EZON at the end, maybe 100 meters shorter compared to the Sunto, but again, I am honestly not sure which one is the most correct. However, if you look at the trail and if you look at the track they recorded, they are almost identical. They are actually kind of interchanging the colors. The blue one is the EZON, while the pink, it's always the Sunto. When it comes to heart rate in the session, I found that EZON, when it comes to hills, etc., it tends to struggle a bit. And the max heart rate, in fact, recorded by the R7 was 164, while the Suntos was 157. So there's a little bit of a difference. However, then average heart rate for the R7, the EZON R7 was 130, while the Sunto was 131. We'll move on to cycling. I did 2 bicycle rides. One of them was around 15 kilometers, the other one was 30 kilometers. The second one especially had different terrain, etc. The first one was pretty easy. And again, if you look closely on the tracks, they are very close to each other. Now we have the introduction of the polar flow, which was attached to my quad lock on the handlebar of the bicycle. And if we look closely, they are almost next to each other. Pink is Sunto, light blue is EZON R7, and the green is the polar flow from my mobile device. And minor differences are especially the Sunto, and the rest of the devices are when I change direction completely, but the rest, they are almost identical. let's go a bit, maybe somewhere a little bit more challenging, where I was cycling between buildings, and again, if you see, they are all close to each other. And in this case, when it comes to heart rate, the average heart rate by EZON R7 was 97, by the Sunto it was 98, max by the EZON R7 was 129, and max it was 129 as well from Sunto. The longer bicycle ride, as I said, it was around 30 kilometers going up and down. And as you will notice, we have 3 tracks here as well. Green is always the polar flow from my device. Then we have the Sunto, which is the pink, and the blue one is the EZON R7. I wore the watches this time as well, both on the left hand side, and if you might notice, the tracks are almost identical for the 3 of them. Very minor differences. They are literally on each other. This was not a very difficult track because in most scenarios there was no tree coverage except from this part here in the Busquet area, but the rest it was open air, and if you noticed, they did very well on almost all the route. When it comes to heart rate, the average heart rate was 112 from the EZON, and from the Sunto 113. Max heart rate, both of the watches recorded 143, which, as you might notice, the optical heart rate of the EZON, it is not that bad at the end of the day. Now, the most difficult ones were the open water swimming. And I'm gonna talk about swim 1 and swim 2. Sunto, unfortunately, after latest update, open water swimming went bonkers, and I always had a third device which was out of the water. The first one, as I said, was a Vivo Active 5, if I'm not mistaken, from my wife. It was attached to my goggles at the back where it does not go underwater. The pink one is Sunto, the blue one is the EZON R7, and the green one is the Garmin in this case. And as you might notice, Sunto is overestimating my swim by approximately 900 meters. So the swim actually recorded by Garmin, it was 1165 meters. The one by EZON 1183 meters, and by Sunto 2072, which obviously, as you might see, the Sunto was all over the place. The green one was the most accurate, and even EZON, to be fair, it did not do very well, even though that the distance is very close to the Garmin, but it didn't do well at all. When it comes to heart rate, again, the Sunto was paired with the Sunto Smart chest strap, and it recorded the Sunto an average heart rate of 88, while the EZON was 125. Max was 116 on the Sunto, and the EZON was 142. So heart rate here in the first swim, the optical HR did struggle quite a bit. And the last swim, which I recorded with all watches, was another open water swim. This one, I had the polar flow attached to my boy, following me, and that is the orange track. The blue track is the EZON, and the purple track is the Sunto. Again, if you look at the tracks, the EZON just did a straight line in the beginning, or at the end, it just literally crossed across the board. Distance wise, the EZON recorded 1380. Sunto overestimated, it was 1726, and the actual distance was approximately 1100 by the Polar Flow app, which is the orange one. Sunto kept to that most of the time. However, in these two instances, I don't know what was happening. It went back and forth, and lost all the credibility throughout in the swim. The EZON, again, turning back, always shorter than expected, but even though the distance is closer, still I cannot say that in open water swimming it is accurate. However, this time heart rate, for some reason, it did much better. The EZON averaged 111 and the Sunto averaged 112. Maximum for the EZON was 133, while the Sunto maxed out at 127 beats per minute. So as you're seeing, I think the EZON, when it comes to road running overall, I believe it is very good. It struggles a little bit in trail running, however cycling, unless you're not pushing, I think, everything, all your energy, and you're literally a pro cyclist, most likely it can do a good job. Again, when it comes to heart rate, like I do with the Sunto, you can always connect it to an external heart rate monitor. However, its optical heart rate is not that bad at the end of the day. The next thing I'm going to speak about is battery life. It's claimed to have 25 hours of battery life. However, I would assume that is with the single GPS on mode. In fact, if you use the dual band GPS, it consumes around 12% of battery per hour, which will last around 9 hours in GPS on mode. If you go with the multi-band, you get approximately 6% of burn per hour, which that means it's almost double the amount. That would be like 18 hours. And I think if you use single band GPS, which I never use it, I think it will give you 25 hours of GPS on time. As I said, it has 3 GPS profiles: single band, multi-band and dual band. The watch also includes some health features. To be honest, I did not use them much, but they are there for those who wish to make use of them. The health features include a one-click test, stress, respiration rate, resting heart rate, but they're manual only, and heart rate readings only happen every 10 minutes, which limits their usefulness because, of course, that affects the basic metrics. It also includes sleep tracking, and by default the sleep window is between 8 o'clock in the evening till 8 o'clock in the morning, and again you can only activate and deactivate this. While it does not detect most of the sleep time and wake times correctly, it did over detect naps. According to this watch, I was napping a lot, sometimes 3 times, which definitely is not something I often do. It has some smart features, notifications, etc., but to be honest, like in all my watches, they are all disabled, so I cannot comment about that because I didn't even try them. Now, let's talk about the application which you install on the smartphone. I installed it on my Android device. First of all, it's very basic. You get 4 tabs. The home tab, which includes daily metrics, calories, steps, training load, body charge. The cards you are seeing at the bottom are not there initially, and whenever you do a test or an activity on the watch, they start populating and showing up in the application. Then there is the equipment tab, which includes settings for your watch. The sport tab, record an activity from your phone. And then there is the Me tab, which is the profile and basic statistics. Some features can only be accessed via the app, like alarms, unfortunately, sport modes and sleep monitoring to disable and enable it. The alarms can only be enabled and disabled from the watch, but to change the time of the alarm, you have to do it from the app. And one important thing to note, that you cannot do an alarm just for once. It's either repeating every day, repeating from Monday to Friday, and repeating Saturday and Sunday. The rest of the things, you might not touch them once you set up the watch. After an activity, it's synced. You can check out the details in the app, and the amount of data is pretty comprehensive, especially for running. You need to accept that some of the labels might not make any sense. They feel like a Chinese translation, such as the heart rate zones. Usually it shows heart, fat burn, warm, and life. I assume that life means just the resting or the day-to-day heart rate zone.
Yeah.
But the rest of the data looks pretty solid. To be fair, I do not know how they are calculating this data because there's nothing about it, but it's damn close to the results I'm obtaining from the Sunto and Training Peaks, even the threshold, HR, and threshold pace. So it's pretty funny, pretty amazing, but again, there is no way that you're gonna get to know how this data is being calculated. The biggest issue I have is stability. The app crashes often or gets stuck. You can hit wait and continue. The app will continue to work most of the time, but it's pretty annoying. That said, after a few updates, it started crashing less. It's still not polished, so it's still crashing. It improved, but to be fair, it ruins a bit the experience of using this watch, which is a pity, because the watch never gave me any trouble at all, never crashed, never restarted, always tracked to the point, so things do work pretty well on the watch. The application as well, it includes training plans and AI coaching, so while you can synchronize to platforms like Training Peaks, Final Surge, Intervals.ICU, etc., the EZON app includes built-in training plans from 5K up to a marathon. You can even use their AI plan builder. I tried it, and apparently I'm on track for a 3 hours 15 marathon. A 30 minutes personal best might be a stretch, but hey, I appreciate the optimism. And the best of it all is that all runs during these plans are easy runs. So it's amazing. I'm gonna get a personal best just with easy runs. I don't know who is this AI. So yes, I am not imagining that this AI training plan is so intelligent in this case. The training sessions synchronize automatically to the watch. You select it from the training plan on the watch. There's one profile called training plan, and you are good to go. You can reschedule the session of the upcoming week from the application only. Pace targets for my easy runs are actually very close to my usual easy runs, which means around 550 to 630 minutes per kilometer. You can choose other plans, not the AI ones, which are standard off-the-shelf plans, at least that's my feeling, which at a glance seem much better than the one created by AI. Summary, let's start with the positives. It's a great price, $138, just a trick. If you create an account, put the watch in the cart, leave it there, they will send you a 10% or 15% discount in your email. It's comfortable and lightweight. It has a surprisingly solid build. It has accurate GPS and HR, especially for road running and basic cycling. Supports external heart rate monitors. It has a track mode and the triathlon mode. Pretty simple, the triathlon mode, but I think it does work. It detects the swim stroke, etc. Exports GPX file, only the route and the elevation, not the heart rate. Includes training plans, basic ones and those with AI, and the metrics are pretty close to my Sunto, which I feel they are pretty accurate as well. Now the negatives. No customization, no data screen customization, no custom workouts or custom structure sessions. You can change heart rate, power zones and pace zones, can synchronize with Training Peaks or similar platforms. Elevation readings might be slightly off. No breadcrumb navigation. I was not expecting full-blown maps, but not even trackback you have on this watch. Heart rate tracking is every 10 minutes, unless you are during an activity, which is every second. Sleep tracking showed non-existent naps. Dual band GPS battery, not ideal for ultra distance which lasts more than 8 hours. App UI is a bit dated, and partly it has awkward translations. Some parts used to have the Chinese graphics. Large activities, sometimes they fail to sync or you need multiple attempts to sync them. Training state will not populate unless you are following a training plan from the app itself. Most of the data does not populate if you choose other profiles other than run, so it's not going to calculate your threshold, etc. For example, if you choose trail run, etc. And you can't even set an alarm on the watch. You can just enable and disable, which might be a pain because you need to open the app to set up the alarm, etc. It's time to wrap up this video, and I'll be honest, if you are coming from Garmin, Suunto, Coros, maybe the biggest brands, most likely the watch will feel as a downgrade. I believe that when one buys a watch, it does not only buy the hardware, the watch itself, and buys it for the features it offers, but one would want a good holistic overall experience. This includes the watch, the application, and the overall feature set and the way they work together. And unfortunately, the application that EZON offers falls a little bit short, which honestly I believe it's a pity, because the accuracy of the hardware on the watch is very good, especially for $130 or less. Having said that, if someone wants a basic watch to track a run just to see how many kilometers they ran and do not mind the below average app, then this watch might be a steal. Yes, you'll need to accept a few compromises: limited app features, no real customization, and MIP screen and cloud storage in China, and as well not so many details of what's updated and what's not, no change logs, etc. But we do make compromises all the time. Will it replace my Suunto? Definitely not. But it will replace my son's Amazfit watch. For running, it is definitely way better, and I will have the opportunity to see how long this watch will last, because of course my son will wear it for every single activity. Let me know in the comments, would you consider this watch for your training, or is the lack of features and the below average app a deal breaker? If you found this review helpful, please consider giving me a like, subscribe for more honest hands-on running gear reviews, and stay strong, run free. I'll catch you in the next one.